not that demanding, and then we take usually a couple of weeks or a month off. I consider it also almost like maintaining my awareness during all that's going on, all the chaos and horror that we're going through, but remembering most of us at least are not minorities. We're not Native Americans, we're not blacks, we're not undocumented or documented people of color. And so, lest we get all involved in our own terror and everything else by what's going on, to think about what it would be like to also be in one of these marginalized groups, to me, it's just a good thing to keep reminding. And the books are wonderful. So you can talk to me after service if you want more information and get on our mailing list at least. You don't have to participate every time, but it's really worthwhile. Thank you.
Dr. Murphy's going to light our chalice. This reading is from Here to Transform by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. Welcome to this place where certainty transforms to questions. This place that takes what is and imagines what can be. Welcome to this space where what was fixed begins to shift, where rigidity embraces unfolding as we join in the dance of transformation. Welcome to this moment of change where together we transfigure and transcend together. This is our time to greet each other. We remember to fill out the joys and concerns, hand them off to me or to Nathan. Please take a few moments to greet each other in whichever way is more comfortable for you, whether it's a hug, a handshake, a wave, an elbow bump, or fist pump. If you're on Zoom, you can wave and talk to each other. So let's greet each other.
morning. My name is Nathan Bakken. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Director of Congregational Life here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada, which is a lot of words that we often summarize as UUFNN. We are gathered today. We are gathered today to prepare ourselves to close out our month-long reflection on our Unitarian Universalist value of transformation. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a living faith tradition that is never complete and never perfect, changing and adapting to meet the needs of the world with love, faith, justice, and joy. When I opened the service back on March 2nd, I opened with Octavia Butler's psalm, "Everything you touch, you change. Everything you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." I focused that service on our individual paths of transformation, really honed in on the everything you change, changes you. And today, I want to invite us to imagine and to think and dream broader. It's not just individuals who change, collectives change. We change, but so do our families, our communities, our societies, and so does our world. And on that macro scale, the changes that matter, the changes that need our spirits collectively, that invite us to live differently into the world, those changes are all too often micro. So today's service dances in that liminal space between the individual and the collective, the massive and the minuscule. It dances with joy and with sorrow. Our songs today, you'll hear, have to do with light and rainbows and darkness and finding ways to transform in the natural world. And our stories today are honest and true and maybe a little too much of reality of what we want on a Sunday morning. And yet, that interplay, that collective and individual, that massive and minuscule, all of it dances and moves together. So in that spirit, I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 117, O Light of Life.
So sometimes you look at a story and you're told the story is, in synopsis, our story revolves around a legend told by the Quechua people in South America, particularly Peru and Ecuador, and that the tale of a small hummingbird that once lived in the vast rainforest. So I did a little research looking up this story and found out that not only is it a mythical story, nobody can find out who the author actually is, but then some other sources say that it appears to be the work of Nicole, I don't know how you say his last name, so apologies, but Yahagalas, a member of the Haida people of the Pacific Northwest. So an indigenous person from the Northwest who supposedly has written this story that's actually about the Quechua people set in South America. So it's a very, anyways. So one day, a massive fire broke out in the forest, and all the animals fled in panic as the flames, relentless and terrifying, consumed everything in their path. The typically brave jaguar, overcome with panic, joined the exodus. The tapir slinked away to find a secure hiding spot. The turtle retreated into its own shell. And the eagle soared high above, escaping the flames. Amidst the chaos, the jaguar noticed the hummingbird flying overhead. However, it was heading towards the fire in the opposite direction of safety. This puzzled the jaguar, but without hesitation, the jaguar continued running away from the flames. Soon he saw the hummingbird flying by again, this time in the same direction as he was going. This repeated itself several times, prompting the jaguar to inquire about this peculiar behavior. "What are you doing?" he says to the hummingbird. The hummingbird replies, "I'm flying to the small watering hole. I gather water in my beak and I pour it onto the fire." "Why?" questioned the jaguar. "Well, of course, to extinguish the flames," answered the hummingbird. "You're crazy," says the jaguar. "Do you believe you can extinguish the fire with your tiny beak alone?" "No," replied the hummingbird. "I know I can't do it alone, but I must contribute my part." The jaguar paused, watching the small bird tirelessly scoop water from the puddle into its beak and then fly back towards the encroaching fire, releasing tiny droplets into the roaring flames. "Brave little thing," the jaguar thought, shaking his head before sprinting away from the approaching fire. "Where are you going?" the jaguar asked the tapir. "That's the wrong direction." The tapir stared at the jaguar with wide eyes. "Well, in that direction lies a large gorge. There's no way forward." The jaguar hadn't fully understood what the tapir said when the caiman, in a panicked flight, burst through the undergrowth and nearly collided with the jaguar, who swiftly jumped aside. "Stop!" shouted the jaguar. "You're about to plunge into the gorge." As if struck by lightning, the caiman stopped. Another crashing sound followed, and the capybara, in a wild dash, emerged from behind a bush, headed straight for the group of animals that was assembling there. Once again, the jaguar narrowly avoided being run over. Leaping aside, he had to warn of the gorge once more. Now the anaconda and the frogs also arrived. The forest animals had coincidentally gathered here, unable to escape the raging flames that were approaching. They were trapped. There was no way forward or backward. Panic broke out among the animals, followed by quarrels. Sound familiar? No one knew what to do. The caiman remarked that the eagle was in the clear. All it needed to do was spread its wings and it would be safe. It could even carry them one by one over the gorge, suggested the anaconda. Never, hissed the jaguar. Besides, the eagle was too cowardly for that anyway. The jaguar also considered himself lucky he could simply jump across the gorge, the capybara jealously added. The jaguar glared fiercely, and the flames of the approaching fire ominously reflected in his eyes. Even I can't jump across the gorge. It's far too wide. He almost struck the capybara down in anger when the little hummingbird darted past him again. The hummingbird buzzed with its wings in front of the jaguar, then zoomed to the capybara, the caiman, and finally to the anaconda. All the animals fell silent. It darted to the small puddle, collected water in its slender beak, hurried back to the approaching flame, and sprinkled tiny droplets into the roaring flames. He'll never make it, the capybara said pitifully. No, said the jaguar, but he's doing his part. I'll dig a trench so the fire can't spread, said the capybara. I know of a larger water source, said the anaconda. We'll help you bring the water, said the frogs. We can't extinguish the fire by ourselves, but perhaps we can hold it back until the trench is ready. And so the forest animals scattered, digging a trench, finding and carrying water. With their combined efforts, they managed to hold back the flames long enough until the trench was complete, preventing the fire from spreading further. The fire burned for a while, but it could no longer reach the forest animals. And after several hours, a heavy rain began, finally extinguishing the flames. Tired and exhausted, the forest animals sat together, watching as the raindrops slowly suffocated the last remaining embers. The little hummingbird approached, sitting in front of the jaguar on the rain-soaked ground. The jaguar extended a paw, sheltering the small hummingbird from the falling raindrops. The jaguar smiled quietly. No, he thought the little bird hadn't extinguished the flames, but he had saved us all from the raging fire. Thus concluded the tale of the hummingbird who, through devotion, inspired the forest animals to stand together for their home. The forest recovered and the animals lived in peace, having learned that together they could achieve anything.
We gather to a moment of prayer and meditation. We gather possibly feeling like there is no way forward and no way back. We gather feeling the flames of the world, the flames of our interior world. We gather as a community that learned a long time ago how to hold both and in two hands. The joy and the sorrow, the grief and the celebration. We come together on this day, lifting up in mournful gratitude the flowers given to us by the Conraith Walker family in loving memory of Noah. I invite you in this moment to resettle into your seat. Feel the back of your chair against the top of your back. To breathe. You might want to close your eyes or leave them open, looking at the windows above my head. As we do the messy work of holding many things on a beautiful day. Delight, grief, breath, light, darkness. It is all here. May all that we hold us as we find that which is our part in this world. Amen. Blessed be, and namaste. When I first got hired here, a congregant told me, "Nathan, you are such a joyful person, but every time you talk, it gets really sad." And they're not that wrong. But I think there's something important about holding space for lament, that in this hardship of our world, it is okay that we have a minute or an hour where we don't have to pretend things are shiny. And so I want to start my sermon, my reflection, we call it many names here, with a poem by Adrienne Marie Brown titled, "If You Can't See the Small." Look here, here. If you can't see the small, You will keep leaping from built thing to built thing, begging the sky to rain only on you. You'll become a tyrant, reaching, shuffling the cards until you only see your own vision, massive, but no one else can see it. If you can't see the small, you'll miss the whole miracle. It is all moments, nearly missed, private, impossible to perform, or perfectly acted, context and all, moments of faith hit the surface and change it, shivering us open to love, to our ridiculous longings. If you can't see the small, you may never feel true love. It comes with the slimmest shadow of warning, whisper clacking spider toes up your spine. To love is to truly lose, the only thing you can ever truly have and never buy. For love, true, the whole surrender kind, starts with a gasp. If you can't see the small, you may never know pleasure, which is not about the immersion into eternal bliss. No. It's the printed pad of your finger grazing along my shoulder as you realize you need to feel me. It is inside, where the sun, wind, rain, and earth have never touched. If you can't see the small, you won't know what the dirt is screaming, one grief at a time, that the whales are singing warning songs, that there is a shudder in all of life now, a premonition. Change everything, for everything is changing. Change everything, for everything is changing. If you can't see the small, you will keep leaping from built thing to built thing. I can't do it alone, but I know I must do my part, says the hummingbird. I want us all to just take a moment to breathe. We just jumped into the deep end of a pool. Again. I invite you to breathe, and I invite you to breathe, stretch out if you need to, and I do it also mostly for me, because I get nervous up here, but I also hope that it is a gift to you, because this past week, I have felt like the jaguar from the story this morning. Frantic, overstimulated, fearful. I spent too many hours at 2 a.m. doom scrolling as I watched my rights, the rights of my community, this community, the communities of people I call beloved, erode before our very eyes. We are living in a moment where ICE raids are ramping up, deportations of documented and undocumented immigrants are skyrocketing to countries they've never been to. The erosion of our right to free speech, professors and students deported for expressing their right to protest, the breach of a ceasefire in Gaza, another wave of faces, names, photos of children dying flood my digital feed. The gutting and destruction of the Department of Education, my friends and loved ones who are educators fearing for their students and for themselves, anti-trans legislation that apparently is seeking to ban haircuts, and for those in Texas, imprison us if we dare to live beyond false binaries, to scare us into hiding, to go stealth for the sake of survival, and all of that happened before Friday. And I am a jaguar in this world, frantic, running around as things are burning, not knowing what to do. When I read that story this week, the first question I asked myself is, well, what is my hummingbird then? If I'm the jaguar, that means I need to have a hummingbird. And I immediately began listing all the actions I have seen in the last week that tell me I am not alone, I must do my part, from the protests across this country to the protests down the street, to the protests around the world, to the work of our very own Reno Posse and the other mutual aid initiatives around Reno, feeding the most urgent needs of our most vulnerable neighbors and friends, to the headline after headline after headline of another judge upholding legal protections, even though the oppressors in power choose to ignore, abscond, or defy their orders. We are surrounded by hummingbirds, though not all hummingbirds are satisfying. Some of us may be hummingbirds in other people's stories, while our experience tells us that we are the jaguar in our own. And in the midst of all this confusion and fear and pain and resistance and change, in the midst of the fire itself, I am to find a message of good news. And guess what? I found it. But before I share it, if you're hoping for a really dramatic, flashy panacea that's going to magically and immediately extinguish the flames of fear and fascism, you're going to be very disappointed. And if you're hoping that I'm going to give in to all the cynical, hopeless contours of my own jaguar fear and throw my hands up and say, it's too hard, let's go home, let's hope someone else figures it out, you don't know what faith community you just walked into. Because look here, if you can't see the small, you will keep leaping from built thing to built thing, begging the sky to rain only on you. You'll become a tyrant, reaching, shuffling cards until you only see your own vision, massive, but no one else can see it. I found my good news in that poem by Adrienne Maree Brown. If you can't see the small, you will keep leaping from built thing to built thing. In other words, if you cannot follow the hummingbirds of liberative change, you will keep clinging to the systems that were never designed to hold you, let alone encourage you, let alone allow you to flourish. And those very same systems, those built things, are cracking, breaking, burning down with no concern for the humanity of those clinging, dependent, oppressed underneath, those trapped within those systems. And the worst part is, we are not outside those systems. We are not bystanders to this destruction. And the ironic part is, not even those in power who are hammering at the walls and setting fire to the curtains, those who cannot see the small things, let alone the sacredness and the wisdom of the small, they think they are outside the system, and they are not. They destroy, 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 not realizing they do not have the capacity to nurture something into existence when the system is reduced to ash. They do not see the hummingbirds, the capybaras, the tapirs, teaching us how to survive this burning. They do not realize the rain, when it falls, will not solely fall on them. And I can feel you asking, Nathan, I thought this was good news, and a murder-suicide really isn't good news. And we can both be right. Change everything, for everything is changing. We need not change the ways the oppressors of this world, we need not change in the ways the oppressors of this world demand us to change. But we are asked to transform in this moment, not just as individuals, but as a community, as a society, and as a world. And since we're not taking a page out of the Department of Government Efficiency to teach us how to transform, let us instead take a page from our Unitarian and Universalist tradition. As Unitarian Universalists, we adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete, never perfect. I live out that fully. We've talked over this month about spiritual transformation, about how the only lasting truth is change, how the universe is change, and that change takes time and often works in ways we don't expect and are surprised by upon reflection. But what about going back to our tradition to grow and transform ethically? What about collectively transforming our ethics? Religion isn't just about a sacred connection to a higher power or to yourself or something bigger than us all. Religion is a tool created by humanity to construct moral and ethical responses to the injustices in the world. Religion is a tool more than anything else. And in Unitarian Universalist minister and religious professional circles, there is a book that almost all of us have read titled The Feminist Ethic of Risk by the UU ethicist Dr. Sharon Welch. And if you enjoy heady academic literature, you're gonna love that book. And if you don't enjoy heady academic literature, I'll give you the Spark Notes. And I'm not gonna summarize the whole book, though it is deeply informative and transformational. What she makes in her introduction, she makes 2 points that are hummingbirds for my ethical life. The first is that she names our dominant response to this burning system is an ethic of control. For human history that has been impacted by the invention of colonialism and white supremacy, our moral and political imagination is shaped by an ethic of control, a construction of agency, responsibility, and goodness, which assumes that it is possible to guarantee the efficacy of one's actions. In other words, we assume that we not only have full control over our actions, but we actually have full control over how our actions are received. In other words, the intentions of one's actions not only surpasses, but matter more than the impact of one's actions. For those of my generation coming up in higher education, community activist circles, community organizing spaces, you'll hear time and time again, impact over intent. That is a resistance to the ethic of control. Because I can meet, when we say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, it is because when we center intention over impact, we abscond ourselves from accountability. In an ethical system where we use intention over impact, we can then justify atrocity. Our intention is to protect cis women in the bathroom. So the impact needs to be transgender people cannot play sports, use public restrooms, hold passports that reflect their lived experiences, get haircuts, exist in public, receive health care. You get the idea. The intention is to protect women in bathrooms. The impact then overflows in ways we don't anticipate. The second hummingbird, and the good news I have to share, is that we do not have to uphold this ethic of control. Dr. Welch offers an alternative that comes out of the womanist tradition. Womanism is a word coined by Alice Walker, to describe the literary, ethical, spiritual, and philosophical tradition of African American women that is rooted in the lives, experiences, and writings of Black women, particularly here in the United States, but the movement has expanded far beyond the US. In womanism, they make pathways out of no ways. The second hummingbird that Dr. Welch offers us is called an ethic of risk. It is not a perfect ethical system. It is not a system that is fixed or static, but one that is responsive and responsible to the context and communities present and within the acts of injustice. It is an ethic that looks out at the world for wisdom and guidance beyond what the system has deemed revelatory. It uplifts novels as sacred texts, poems as prayers, an intellectual tradition out of experience, not seeking permission, just is. And at the heart of a womanist ethic of risk is not an answer, but a question. How do we learn from these stories that lift up our capacity for goodness and lift up the reality of how tragic we can be? Toni Morrison's Beloved, a beautiful book, impactful, full of wisdom, and does not shy away from the tragedy. It is an ethic that dares us to risk the truth of our world in an era of misinformation. To quote the womanist ethicist, the Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, even when they call your truth a lie, tell it anyway. To quote Dr. Welch, there are no heroic pretensions, no grand narratives of certain triumph, but a life-affirming refusal to submit to cynicism, alienation, and despair. Turning back to our story from this morning, an ethic of risk is not the rainstorm that eventually comes and puts out the fire. It is the hummingbird moving one droplet at a time, calling upon the animals to do what they are able to do, and the animals come together for the purpose of digging a ditch to protect themselves, not the forest from the flames, because they know how forests work. Forests will regrow, animal lives will not. That, unfortunately and fortunately, is our good news, y'all. We do not have to lie as we change. We do not have to look at a world burning like that meme of the dog in the kitchen that says, this is fine. The kitchen's on fire, a dog sitting at a table just going, this is fine. We don't have to do that. But how we learn not to do that, we learn from the stories we tell that uplift us to grow our capacity for goodness. If you can't see the small, you won't know what the dirt is screaming, one grief at a time. That the whales are singing warning songs, that there is a shudder in all of life now, a premonition. Change everything, for everything is changing. So too do we change. Change to see the small things, listen to dirt's grief, sing the warning songs alongside the whales, move like the jaguar. Do not deny the fear or the frantic, but move through the story towards community to create pathways of survival. change everything, for everything is changing. A covenant at the core of our faith, centered on love. A promise that is ours to make, that will, in time, transform the world. Amen, and blessed be.
I'm Sarah, she, her pronouns. We are 3/4 of the way to stewardship. Thank you, everyone. We've still got a little ways to go. UUFNN has been my home since 2019. Back in 2016, I saw the writing on the wall and looked for a place to move to. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was protesting bathroom bills that were going through then, and I decided that I needed to get out of that state, and it's a good thing I did. So I was running from this growing transphobic country. My family here has supported me, and you guys are my family. You guys have supported me through my transition. While the U.S. becomes more hostile to my people, I could not be myself and serve my spiritual journey without UUFNN and the greater UUA. I will continue to pledge my time, talent, and money to those who still see me as a human. This church was the first place I ever saw the sign on the bathroom. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Thank you.
As we approach our time for offering, give what you will, for the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that has meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to the people that we may never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. For those of us that are physically together here at the sanctuary, we will be passing the basket. For those of us that are on Zoom, you can do the offering virtually. Just follow the steps on the slides. Here at UUFNN, each month we also give folks an opportunity to share our generosity by sharing with a designated nonprofit. The Share the Plate recipient of the month of March is Tu Casa Latina. Founded in 2014 by Xiomara, one of our members. It's a nonprofit organization that provides humanitarian forms of relief for immigrant women, men, and children who are victims of crimes, domestic violence, abuse, and trafficking in northern Nevada. Thank you for your generosity. Let the offering begin. Let us read together to the work of this fellowship. which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
Before we extinguish our chalice and begin to bring our time together to a close, I want to just invite you all to take a moment and wiggle, stretch a little bit. If you need to stand up, stand up. Thank you, Marilee. There's something to be said about hearing hard truths. It's another thing to hear a hard truth and not move your body afterwards, and I apologize for that. As we extinguish our chalice, we know that we too are always changing. We too are a community that seeks to pay attention to the small things. And though it may seem like a small act, blowing out a candle, we know what it represents is that the light we foster in this community is not a light we keep in these four walls. Though this light is extinguished, we carry it forward in our hearts, in our minds, and in our actions. Amen and blessed be. I invite you to please rise in body and spirit for our closing hymn as we leave this friendly place. Please remain standing for our benedictions. I welcome our choir to lead us in our choral benediction. And if you feel called, please hold hands with your neighbors. If you do not feel called to hold hands, I invite you to softly place your hand over your heart. Take a moment to look into the eyes of the people whose hands you're holding, into those around you. To know that though our worship has ended, our service is just beginning, and may we all be lights and hummingbirds to one another as we do this work of ethical risk-taking to transform our world into something beautiful, just, and centered on love. Amen. Blessed be, and namaste. Thank you.